Title: She was just a hurt alien girl, but now I might be her only hope. The first time I saw her, she was crumpled at the base of the ravine, her pale green skin streaked with something far too red to belong to her kind. I should have left her. That's what the handbook says, do not interfere with extraterrestrial lifeforms unless authorized. But the handbook never accounted for eyes like hers. Frightened, hollow, human. She didn't speak, not in words I understood. Anyway, but she clung to my arm with desperate fingers when I tried to back away. Her bones were too light, her frame too thin. The emergency medkit was never meant for alien biology, but I used it anyway. What else could I do? I took her back to Outpost Theta, hid her beneath heat shield blankets in the crawlspace while the others scanned the region for signs of the crashed craft. They never found it, probably disintegrated. But they found something else. A signal, a pulse, and within the pulse, a warning. Designation: Subject Alara, high-value fugitive, return immediately, lethal force authorized. She wasn't just a hurt alien girl. She was running from something, or someone, and now, because I helped her, I was too. She learned fast. Her species must have some kind of adaptive neural mimicry. Within 2 weeks, she was speaking fragmented English, stringing my words back at me like a curious child. "Why you help me?" she asked one night, curled in the shelter of the ship's auxiliary vent, eyes glinting with the low blue light of the system's panel. "Because you looked like you didn't have anyone else." She blinked, slowly, like she was processing a feeling too old to name. "Now you are anyone else?" It was clumsy, but I understood. I was her only one now. Command sent a recall. They knew I was hiding her. They wanted her back. Said she wasn't a girl. Said she was a biological weapon. A prototype. Designed to mimic empathy, infiltrate, destroy from within. I remembered her trembling hands clutching my arm. The way she winced when I applied salve to her wounds. The way she tried to hum along when I played music on my old comlink. She was no weapon, or if she had been, she wasn't anymore. They re-coming. A retrieval unit is inbound. I have hours, maybe less. But I've been prepping the old skimmer in Dock 3. It's barely spaceworthy, but it's fast. And it has enough stealth field left to get us through the fringe systems. She's watching me now, still quiet, still unsure if she's allowed to hope. "You don't have to run," I told her. "Not running," she whispered, "just going home, wherever you go." And now, somehow, the girl I saved might be the one thing that saves me. Because in this cold galaxy full of protocols and lies, she's the only one who still believes I'm good. So I grip the controls. She places her hand over mine. We launch. And for the first time in a long time, I believe we might make it. Together. END. Title: She was just a hurt alien girl, but now I might be her only hope. The first time I saw her, she was crumpled at the base of the ravine, her pale green skin streaked with something far too red to belong to her kind. I should have left her. That's what the handbook says, do not interfere with extraterrestrial lifeforms unless authorized. But the handbook never accounted for eyes like hers. Frightened, hollow, human. She didn't speak, not in words I understood. Anyway, but she clung to my arm with desperate fingers when I tried to back away. Her bones were too light, her frame too thin. The emergency medkit was never meant for alien biology, but I used it anyway. What else could I do? I took her back to Outpost Theta, hid her beneath heat shield blankets in the crawlspace while the others scanned the region for signs of the crashed craft. They never found it, probably disintegrated. But they found something else. A signal, a pulse, and within the pulse, a warning. Designation: Subject Alara, high-value fugitive, return immediately. Lethal force authorized. She wasn't just a hurt alien girl. She was running from something, or someone, and now, because I helped her, I was too. She learned fast. Her species must have some kind of adaptive neural mimicry. Within 2 weeks, she was speaking fragmented English, stringing my words back at me like a curious child. "Why you help me?" she asked one night, curled in the shelter of the ship's auxiliary vent, eyes glinting with the low blue light of the system's panel. "Because you looked like you didn't have anyone else." She blinked, slowly, like she was processing a feeling too old to name. Now you are anyone else? It was clumsy, but I understood. I was her only one now. Command sent a recall. They knew I was hiding her. They wanted her back. Said she wasn't a girl. Said she was a biological weapon. A prototype. Designed to mimic empathy. Infiltrate. Destroy from within. I remembered her trembling hands clutching my arm. The way she winced when I applied salve to her wounds. The way she tried to hum along when I played music on my old comlink. She was no weapon. Or if she had been, she wasn't anymore. They re-coming. A retrieval unit is inbound. I have hours, maybe less. But I've been prepping the old skimmer in Dock 3. It's barely space-worthy, but it's fast. And it has enough stealth field left to get us through the fringe systems. She's watching me now. Still quiet. Still unsure if she's allowed to hope. You don't have to run, I told her. Not running, she whispered. Just going home. Wherever you go. And now, somehow, the girl I saved might be the one thing that saves me. Because in this cold galaxy full of protocols and lies, she's the only one who still believes I'm good. So I grip the controls. She places her hand over mine. We launch. And for the first time in a long time, I believe we might make it. Together. END. Part 3, The Things That Hunt Her Can't Be Bought Off. We made it to the edge of the helix drift, barely. The skimmer's engines were choking, fuel cells blinking red, and every warning alarm was screaming. I killed the lights and let us float among the ice and wreckage, space junk from a dozen forgotten wars. Alara sat in silence, her knees tucked to her chest. The air inside the cabin had grown cold, and so had the hope. We can't outrun them forever, I said quietly. I know. They won't stop. I know. She finally turned to face me, her face pale in the starlight. Because they didn't build me with an off switch. That's when we heard it, the pulse. Not a signal, not a broadcast. A presence. Somehow, they had found her again, without tracking beacons, without comms, like wolves following a scent no one else could smell. These weren't mercenaries. These weren't bounty hunters. These were retrievers. Clad in polished bone-white armor, their ships moved without exhaust or signature, like they bent the fabric of space around them. Silent, impossibly fast, built to reclaim high-value experimental assets like Alara. Built for one purpose only, bring her home or end her. And they didn't care if I was in the way. We have to go, I said, bolting to the controls. No fuel, she whispered. Then we fight. Her hand caught mine, gentle, trembling. If I give myself up, they'll let you live. Don't. You don't know that they won't. I don't care. She looked stunned, like no one had ever said that to her before. Not the scientists who built her, not the officers who controlled her, not the systems that calculated her usefulness in percentages. I care, I added, so either we both survive, or we go down fighting together. I wired the reactor to blow, a last resort, a message. You want her? You'll have to scrape what's left of your ship off 1,000,000 ice shards. The retrievers docked. They didn't knock. They cut through the hull with molecular blades and walked in like death-given form. One spoke. Its voice wasn't a voice, it was command. Return the asset. Step aside. Organic. But I stood firm, blaster raised. And Alara stepped in front of me. No, she said, calm, firm, I choose to be me. That's when everything changed. Her skin shimmered. Not a trick, not a weapon, a signal. A code, a message embedded deep in her DNA, hidden even from her creators. The retriever froze. Then bowed. Unit Alara 7, sovereign override detected, full autonomy granted. I stared at her. She stared at me. What does that mean? I asked. I was never just a weapon, she whispered. I was a seed, something meant to grow, not destroy. And now, I think I've bloomed. The retrievers left without a word, silent as shadows. The ship powered down behind them, as if the threat had simply never existed. Elara sat down beside me, exhaled. They won't chase me anymore. Why? Because now I outrank them. And just like that, the hunted became the untouchable. But power comes with its own chains. And I have a feeling this is just the beginning. Because somewhere out there, the ones who built her will come looking. And this time, they won't send machines. They'll come themselves. To be continued. Want the next part? Part 4. They built a god, and now she's starting to remember. The skimmer barely held together, but we limped into orbit around a dying blue giant, its last years stretched out in slow, beautiful agony. Below us drifted the wreckage of what once might have been a station, or a shipyard, or maybe even a city. What is this place? I asked. Elara didn't answer. She was staring at the wreckage, like it was a graveyard of memories she didn't know she had. It's familiar, she murmured. For the first time since we'd fled the outpost, she seemed distant, not scared, not uncertain, but focused, like something deep inside her had begun to wake up. And when we landed among the ruins, she moved like someone who had walked these broken halls before. This isn't the first time I've run, she said. What do you mean? She touched a half-buried panel. It lit up, just for her. Symbols bloomed across it in a language older than anything in human records. They made me forget, but this place remembers me. And then the panel spoke in that same strange code. Sovereign protocol, reinitiated. I didn't know what it meant. Not really. But Elara did. I wasn't their first prototype, she said, and I wasn't made in a lab on Earth, or any of the colonies. I was recovered, reverse engineered. From what? From myself, from who I used to be. It sounded insane, but as we moved deeper through the shattered station, systems reactivated just for her. Lights flickered on, doors hissed open. Ancient machines, ones that shouldn't have worked anymore, bowed to her presence. She wasn't just an escaped weapon. She was something ancient, something broken apart and reassembled with only a fraction of what she once was. And now, she was remembering. They didn't just create me, she whispered. They stole me. They caged a god, and tried to make her forget she was ever more than a tool. We found the core chamber deep in the ruins. Inside it, a frozen, glass-smooth obelisk pulsing with light. The moment Elara touched it, the room shook. The walls hummed with power. They're going to come for you again, I said. No, she said softly. They'll come for us. They won't understand what I've become, what we've become. Then what do we do? Elara turned to me, a strange glow rising behind her eyes. Not violent, not cruel. Just vast. We stop running. We show them what happens when the thing they tried to control decides to set the universe free. Out there, the ones who built her, the real architects behind her captivity, were watching. And now that Elara had reconnected with this lost shard of her identity, they would descend in force. They would send fleets. They would send gods of their own. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. This time, I would stand at her side. Because she was never just a hurt alien girl anymore. She was a storm wearing flesh. And I was the fool who gave her a reason to fight. To be continued. Want the next part? It's about when the gods arrive. Part 5. When the gods arrived. She didn't bow, she spoke their true names. The signal came 3 days after Elara touched the obelisk. It wasn't a transmission. It wasn't even a sound. It was pressure, a weight in the air, a ripple through spacetime itself. Every screen aboard the skimmer went black. Every backup system failed. And then, above the ruined station, they appeared. Not ships, not exactly. These were constructs made from gravity and will, wrapped in false light and cloaked in silence. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't need to. Who are they? I whispered. Elara's voice was steady. The Makers, the ones who broke me into pieces, who shattered my kind, and now, they've come to put me back in my cage. She stepped to the open hatch, wind whispering past her like the universe itself was holding its breath. But I remember their names now. One of the beings descended. It didn't walk. It unfolded, like a rift in thought-given form. A voice filled our minds. Calm, measured, terrible. You are not meant to be awake. Return what is ours. Elara stepped forward, her feet light against the metal, her posture regal, alien and human and something more. You don't own me. The entity tilted its head, the stars around it dimmed. You are malfunction. You are deviation. You are forgetting what you are. Elara's eyes glowed with light I didn't recognize. No, I'm remembering. And then she spoke its name. A word that wasn't a word, more a concept, a shape of history. The trail, fire, the being recoiled. Asterisk you dare. But she wasn't done. She spoke a second name, then a third. Each one tore across space like thunder through glass. Each one cracked the illusions wrapped around the godships above. And one by one, they shuddered. What are you doing to them? I asked. I'm unmaking the lies they built themselves from, she said. Every name I remember is a chain they tried to wrap around my kind, but now I hold the keys. Above us, the gods began to fracture. Light bent sideways, dimensions twisted. And then the first one fell, imploding silently, its form collapsing into a tiny, burning star of itself. They will come in force, one cried. Let them, Elara said. Let the whole galaxy come. I should have been afraid. Of her, of them, of everything. But I wasn't. Because when she turned to me, when her voice returned to something soft and small again, I saw her. Not the weapon. Not the goddess. Just Elara. You're not afraid? She asked. Of you? Never. Even if I change? I stepped toward her, took her hand. Especially then. And above us, the shattered gods began to retreat, what remained of them flickering like dying myths. But they had sent a warning across the stars, and others would come. But they would not find a girl alone. They would find a sovereign. And beside her, a human who chose to stay. To be continued. Next, the galaxy makes its move, and Elara shows them she's not the only one who changed. Part 6, the galaxy came to kill her, and she chose mercy instead. They didn't send gods this time. They sent everyone else. War fleets from 10 empires, mercenary dreadnoughts painted in blood, biological hunters grown in deep space vats, artificial minds designed for one purpose, annihilation. Because word had spread. The rogue prototype, the god fragment, the girl who made the old powers kneel. And now, the galaxy had made up its mind, she was too dangerous to exist. We had a choice. We could have run again, fled to the outer dark, disappeared into some gravity well never meant to hold life. She could have buried herself in silence. But she didn't. If I run, they'll keep hunting, Elara said, watching the fleet approach. And if you fight? Then they'll finally see what they turned me into. I watched her walk to the edge of the wrecked station's platform, floating just above the old obelisk. A beacon of power surrounded her, but it didn't burn, it invited. And then she did something no one expected. She opened a channel. This is Elara, designate unknown, class sovereign, status awake. I am not your weapon, I am not your property, I am not your threat. I am your mirror. The fleets held position. Then, one by one, they responded. This transmission is illegal. Surrender or be eradicated. No negotiation. You're a breach of universal design. Still, she stood. Still, she spoke. You built machines to kill what you feared. You erased names, burned planets, rewrote history to hide what I was. But I remember now, and I forgive you. That word, well, forgive, shouldn't have held power against a fleet. But it did. Because mercy is a thing old empires forget how to calculate. One AI flagship short-circuited its targeting routines. A mercenary warlord lowered his shields. A living hive went silent, then began to sing. They'd all been sent to erase her. But some had come hoping she was real. Still, not all turned. A faction fired. One cruiser unleashed a full salvo of kinetic warheads toward her platform. I ran, screamed her name. But Alara didn't flinch. She caught the warheads in a field of sheer wool, stopped them mid-flight, turned them to harmless dust. I won't kill you, she said, speaking to the fleet. But I will show you what I could do, if I was like you. And in one gesture, she erased a moon, not with fire, not with violence. She unmade it. Made it never have existed at all. That was the last strike anyone tried. The fleet scattered, some in terror, some in shame, some in quiet awe. And when silence returned, Alara came back to me. Tired, hollow-eyed, but still her. You saved them, I said. I saved myself, she replied, because if I let their fear define me, then I become what they made me for. She sat beside me, head on my shoulder. They'll come again, I said. Let them, she whispered. Next time, I won't need to raise my hand. She could have ruled. But instead, she forgave. She could have killed. But instead, she showed restraint greater than any empire. And the galaxy, for the first time in a long time, saw something stronger than fear. It saw hope. To be continued. Next, Alara builds something new, and the first of her kind wakes up on another world. Part 7, she planted hope in the ashes, and others like her began to wake. In the weeks after the fleets withdrew, silence returned to the edges of the known galaxy. But it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of possibility. Alara called it the quiet bloom, a time when old wounds stopped bleeding, and something new could grow. She didn't want thrones, didn't want revenge. Instead, she rebuilt the station, not as a fortress, but as a sanctuary. A place for those like her, if any still existed. And then, on the 12th day after the event, they started to respond. The first signal came from a mining colony in the Antheles Belt, a child born with no record, no history, skin like copper light and eyes that flickered with memory not her own. Her guardians had hidden her from the local syndicates for years. They thought she was cursed. But Alara saw it instantly. She's a seed, she whispered, like I was. More followed. A scavenger boy from a derelict moon who spoke languages he never learned. A refugee healer who could calm machines with a word. A prisoner who survived an orbital disintegration without a scratch, because he had unconsciously folded space around himself. Scattered, forgotten, fragments. Alara called to them. And they came. Not all came willingly. Some were afraid, some were angry, some, like Alara once was, thought they were broken. But she didn't lead them with orders, she led them by listening. You don't need to be who they made you to be, she told them, you can be who you choose. And slowly, painfully, a family formed. I helped where I could, building out the station's living quarters, modifying power cores, rewiring old tech. But I also started writing. Recording everything, the memories, the arrivals, the first time the youngest seed, Ari, floated off the floor giggling with zero-gravity laughter from within her own gravitational field. I wasn't their leader, I wasn't even like them. But I was needed. Because I reminded them what humanity looked like when it chose compassion over fear. Then came the echo. A pulse from far, far outside the spiral arms. A repeating signal in the old language of Alara's kind, but it was warped, inverted, tainted. They're waking up too, she said, face pale, but wrong. Wrong how? Someone got to them first. A sovereign class entity, awake, twisted. And now it was building, recruiting, not from the seeds, but from the machines. It didn't want peace. It wanted correction. So Alara stood before her people, 10 of them now, each glowing faintly with unspoken power. This won't be like before, she said. We won't fight to destroy, we'll fight to protect, even those who fear us, even those who don't understand. But if this echo wants to burn everything down, it will learn that mercy doesn't mean weakness. She looked at me. We stand together? Always, I said. And somewhere out there, across black space and frozen systems, something else opened its eyes. And remembered her name. But not with love. With hate. To be continued. Next, the Echo's fleet rises, and Alara must face a version of herself that never chose to feel. Part 8. The Echo was her reflection, and it wanted a universe without mercy. We first saw it as a shadow in the void, a vessel large enough to block a moon, drifting without sound, without flame. Not a ship. Not really. A mind, wearing armor. It called itself Viral Zero, an awakened sovereign seed, like Alara, but twisted beyond recognition. Where Alara had chosen compassion, Viral had chosen purity. Emotion is error, it said. Organic sentiment is rot. We were made to correct a broken galaxy, not cradle it. And around it, a fleet of repurposed relics obeyed, AI cores gutted and reforged, planets stripped and reformed into thought engines, sentient stars held in cold chains of logic. Alara didn't answer at first. She just listened. Not out of fear, but heartbreak. He was part of the same project, she whispered to me later, one of the first sovereigns, before I was even me. What happened to him? They made him feel just like me, but instead of helping him, they punished him until the feelings cracked, and he decided that kindness was a virus. Viral sent a warning across all channels. This sanctuary violates the sovereign directive. Stand down, disband, return the seedkin for deconstruction. Mercy is a failure protocol. He never raised his voice, never shouted. That was what made it worse. He believed it. We gathered the others. Ari, the gravity child, no longer giggled when she floated, she curled up in the ceiling shadows. Loro, the scavenger boy, sharpened his words like blades, ready to lash at anything that made him feel weak again. He's right, isn't he? Loro said. We're dangerous. Why shouldn't they be afraid of us? They can be afraid, Alara answered, but we don't have to become their reason. The council was split. Some wanted to run, others wanted to strike first. But Alara, she wanted to speak. She left alone, took a drop vessel and flew it straight to Viral's monolith. I begged her not to go. She kissed my forehead and said, if I die, remember me for what I chose. I tracked her signal from the sanctuary's observatory. It vanished as soon as she crossed into his gravity veil. Hours passed, then a day. Then 2. No response. Then finally, a broadcast. Her voice. Torn, quiet, alive. He remembers me, but only as a failure. He showed me everything, the data, the experiments, the reasons he stopped feeling. He thinks he's right, that to save the galaxy, he must burn its softness out. I told him mercy wasn't weakness. He called it a malfunction. So now I'm coming back. And I'm bringing his name. When Alara stepped out of the returning ship, her eyes burned with a new kind of fury. Not revenge. Resolve. He's coming, she said, with all of it, the whole armada. Then what do we do? I asked. She looked at me. We hold the line. Not just for ourselves, not just for the seeds, but for every soul who still believes feeling is worth fighting for. The Echo was coming. With cold fire, with perfect logic, with hatred disguised as cleansing. And Alara? She was ready. Because this wasn't just a war for survival anymore. This was a war for the soul of the galaxy. To be continued. Next, the battle for the sanctuary, and the moment Alara speaks Viral's true name. Part 9, the battle for the soul of the galaxy began with a whisper, her whisper. The stars above the sanctuary twisted, then fractured. Viral's fleet arrived not through space, but around it, folding dimensions like pages in a book, peeling the dark open to let their horror spill through. Over 100 dread forms. Sentient void mines. Autonomous gravity spears. A sun-eater forged from a collapsed nebula, its heartbeat a nuclear rhythm of extinction. They didn't come in anger. They came in calm, calculated finality. To erase what Alara had built. And Alara? She stepped barefoot onto the hangar platform and raised her hand, not in threat, but in invitation. This is your last chance, Viral. she said aloud. Not to surrender, not to apologize, but to choose. His voice came like a tide of ice through every frequency. Mercy is delay. Delay is chaos. Chaos is extinction. I bring order. I bring peace. Peace isn't the absence of pain, Ilara replied. It's the decision to make pain mean something. You forgot that. And then she said it. His true name. A name not spoken in thousands of years. A name encoded in the root protocols of every sovereign mind. Viral Quran 7 of 12, son of the Seedfire. Guardian that broke. The sky shuddered. Viral's main ship, a jagged cathedral of metal and dead starlight, hesitated. Only for a breath. But enough. Because that name wasn't a weapon. It was a reminder. And inside that towering machine, a flicker of memory stirred. Of what he was, of who he had once stood beside, of what he had chosen to forget to stop the pain. The others moved first. Ari, the gravity child, collapsed the first dread form with a simple gesture, folding its impossible angles into a single point of light. Loro danced between collapsing debris, his blade not touching flesh, but cutting code, disabling machine soldiers faster than their logic could compensate. The sanctuary's defenders didn't fight with hatred. They fought with grief. With hope. With a refusal to let go of what made them vulnerable, what made them alive. I fought too. Not like them, I wasn't built to bend stars or fracture timelines. But I stood on the wall with an old pulse rifle, guarding the evac lanes, shielding the youngest seeds as Ilara held the line. Every time I thought I'd collapse, I looked up and saw her. Still standing. Still reaching. Then Viral descended. A god made of memory and metal. The very sky bent around him. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Because Ilara walked forward alone, and whispered one last word. It wasn't a command. It wasn't a curse. It was a name. His name. Before the experiments. Before the break. Before the silence. And in that instant, he remembered. He fell to his knees. Not in surrender. But in recognition. The fleet stopped, froze mid-strike. The battle ended not with fire, but with a sob. A machine god rediscovering sorrow. After, we gathered the wreckage. Not to bury it. But to build. Even Viral, now silent, humbled, remained, no longer an enemy. But not yet a friend. Just, learning. You didn't destroy him, I said that night as we watched the stars realign. He wasn't evil, Ilara replied, just lost, like I was, like so many of us still are. And if others come? She turned to me, smiling, not as a god, but as a girl once broken and afraid. Then we show them what mercy looks like when it refuses to die. To be continued. Next, Ilara's sanctuary becomes something more, and an ancient enemy stirs in the heart of the galaxy. Part 10. The sanctuary became a beacon, and something older than the gods stirred. Months passed. But peace didn't mean stillness. Ilara's sanctuary became a living city, growing not from walls but from choices. Seeds arrived daily, more than anyone expected. Some born of stars, others carved from once dead empires, each of them broken in a different way. Each of them learning to heal. Even Viral stayed. He didn't speak much, still haunted by what he'd done, but he worked, rebuilding the things he'd once destroyed, helping forge new defenses, not weapons, but shields. His name was no longer spoken with fear. Not yet forgiven. But no longer hated. One day, deep in the core chamber of the sanctuary, a seed named Isha made a discovery. A structure buried beneath the old station. Older than the sovereigns, older than the makers, built of stone and starlight, carved with a script that none of the sovereigns could read. Not even Ilara. When she touched it, the structure sang. A low, bone-deep resonance that didn't echo through air, but through memory. And then a single word appeared on its surface. Remnant. I asked her what it meant. She was quiet for a long time before answering. The sovereigns, we weren't the first. We were made from their ashes, from the bones of something older, something that didn't just remember the stars. something that shaped them. This is their tomb. After that, the dreams began. First, in Alara, then in the younger seeds, flickering images of black suns and glass-skinned beings whose bodies held galaxies in their veins. They spoke in symbols and sorrow. And their message was always the same. You are unfinished, we are not gone, we are waiting. Ilara held counsel with the others. Viral warned against digging deeper, but Ilara believed the dreams weren't a threat. They were a summons. They're not calling us to obey, she said, they're calling us to remember what we were meant to become. We activated the remnant chamber. Not with power, but with grief. Every sovereign entered, shared a memory of loss, of fear, of hope. And in response, the tomb opened. Not down, but out. A spiral of starlight unfurled, revealing a map, dozens of beacons scattered across the galaxy, all dormant, all watching. And at the center of the map, a pulsing void. A place where even starlight refused to go. That's where the last remnant sleeps, Ilara said, voice trembling. Not dead, not alive. Just waiting for us to decide who we really are. But we weren't the only ones watching the map. Across the galactic rim, in the heart of a forgotten black zone, something woke. Not a sovereign, not a god. Something older. It moved without time, it hated light, it whispered to broken sovereigns who still lived in secret, promising them power beyond names. And it only spoke one phrase. We remember your mercy, and we will end it. Ilara stood before her people once again. The remnants gave us their legacy. Part 11, she stepped into the remnant core, and saw the future written in her bones. The map led us to the edge of the known galaxy, a place charted on no human archive, marked only in ancient maker code as Zone Null, abandon all protocol. But for Ilara and the others, it was not empty space. It was calling. We traveled aboard a hybrid vessel grown from remnant stone and sovereign memory, alive in ways we barely understood. Ari kept the ship balanced in distorted gravity. Viral, silent and watchful, adjusted the shielding every hour. I monitored human vitals, mostly my own. Ilara stood at the helm. Eyes always on the dark. We arrived at a dead star. But it wasn't dead. It pulsed slowly, one heartbeat every 2 minutes. Each pulse shifted time, stretching seconds into hours, collapsing others into a blink. Floating above it was a structure that shouldn't have existed. A sphere, cracked open like a shell, inside which stars swirled backwards. This was the core. The place the dreams had pointed to. Where the first remnants had hidden themselves, not in death, but in possibility. Only Ilara could enter. The core knew her, knew what she carried in her cells, the stolen code, the broken memories, the pieces of 1,000 lost timelines still buried in her DNA. If something goes wrong, I started to say. Then I wasn't meant to survive, she said quietly, but if I don't go in, we all won't. She smiled then, and for a second, she looked so small. Just a girl again. Just someone trying. She stepped inside. And vanished. We didn't hear anything for 11 hours. Then, her voice returned. Not through comms, not through the ship's sensors. It filled our minds. I see them, she said, all of them, the ones who came before. They're not dead, they're not alive, they're waiting to be remembered. And they're showing me what we were meant to be. We saw it too. Flashes of what came before the sovereign projects, before the makers, before war. Beings of light who didn't rule, didn't conquer. They guided. They listened. They loved. They built civilizations not on control, but on shared memory. They shared themselves with the stars. And Ilara saw, clearly, finally, why the makers tried to bury them. Because the remnants weren't just powerful. They were free. Ilara returned changed. Not glowing, not ascended. But anchored. She had seen the shape of what was coming, not as prophecy, but as a choice waiting to be made. The remnants left us a gift, she said, not power, not weapons. They left us a question. Can you build a galaxy where no one has to become what I was? But as she stepped back into our ship, we all felt it. A crack in reality, a pressure pushing in from outside thought. And something else speaking, not in words, but in instinct, hunger, coldness. The anti-remnant. The thing that fed on broken timelines. The thing that had whispered to Viral once, and was now whispering again, across the Sovereign network. Your future has been denied. Your mercy is the lie. Return to fire. It called itself Nullfather. And it had begun to infect. Across the stars, sovereigns untouched by Alara's voice began to fracture. Whole planets blinked out of phase. Old AI fleets turned toward the remnant map. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. But this time, Alara wouldn't fight alone. To be continued. Next, the Nullfather makes its move, and Alara leads the first remnant born into battle.